How long have you been in the Navy?
Oh, me blowed life.
I'm Jamie Britt.
And I'm Heath Britt.
And together we are E14. We have 40 years of naval service.
And each week we discuss a potpourri of topics, which we like to call smoke pit topics.
These are real world topics that concern us, our marriage, and our Navy with a sailor twist.
So join us each week as we dive into the deep end.
Booyah! Three, two, one. Hey everyone, welcome back to E14 Podcast. I'm Jamie Britt.
And I'm Heath Britt.
And together we are E14. And please remember, the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of our own and not the United States Navy or our respective commands.
So take it or leave it. And just to say something, babe, this
What's
respective
that?
command now. I don't have a command no more.
Valerie has a command.
That's true.
That's so.
Valerie has a command.
Our
Good
guests
point.
always have commands.
Good point.
So
Good point.
our respective commands works.
So everybody, welcome everybody back to E14 Podcast. We have today with us, we have Valerie Vestal, and she's here to talk to us about some seasonal depression. So Valerie, please introduce yourself to us and tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah, well, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. I am Valerie Vestal, Lieutenant Commander in the Navy Reserve. I've been in the Reserve for 11 years. I feel like something unique about myself. I did not join the reserves or at the Navy at all until I was 39. And so that was quite a fun adventure. And in my civilian world, well, in the Navy as well, I am a psychiatric nurse practitioner. At this point in time, I'm actually on ADOS orders, and I am on a special project of the expanded operational stress control. Probably the best gig I've ever had with the Navy.
Really?
Yes, we talked about it a lot over the phone that
Yeah.
time. Yeah, it's a big deal now.
It is
Wow.
the absolute best gig ever. I mean, I'm passionate about it. It helps our sailors, and it feels like you're giving back.
Ma'am, when we were advertising beforehand and we were kind of putting it out that we were going to have you as a guest on the show, a lot of sailors hit us back and they were like, yes, we need to hear this. Yes, seasonal depression exists. It's real. And we can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
So, it's a topic that sailors want to hear about because we know it's out there. We know it exists, but we don't know a whole lot about it.
Never heard of it.
It really is. One of the things, so when I mentioned the expanded operational stress control, and one of the modules is healthy behaviors. And, there's only a limited amount of time, but I do have the opportunity to squeak that in. And the interest and attention is very real. And at times at my NOS, when I help lead the suicide, I also, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And so I often describe, depression and what it looks like way before we talk about suicide.
Right.
And I don't know how much you're on social media, but we're on it quite a lot promoting our podcast. But, you see a lot of things that have been coming out recently as far as awareness for depression. And depression doesn't look like what you think about. You think someone that's laid up in their bed, covers over their head, but oftentimes it could be that smiling person or that smiling sailor next to you.
So, Jamie, I actually have a talk. It's called The 5 Faces of Depression. And so today we'll talk about one of the faces, which is seasonal depression, because just like you said, you are so right that, not all of depression looks the same nor is created equal. One of the things that you're really describing is that we as humans wear masks.
Oh,
Definitely. You hear that a lot on our Tale of the Stigma, that a lot of people wear masks just to fit in their environment so they don't stand out, so they can continue to carry on.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm fine. That's
Right.
what you hear the most when you ask, how's your day or how are you? Good.
Yeah. So, again, it's about awareness, for everybody. That way the person knows that, that maybe there is something wrong. And then other people notice as well. So we can come together to solve a big problem.
Right. That's great. So, Valerie, in your own words, so what is seasonal depression? Could you define a little bit for our listeners and for me too?
Sure. So seasonal depression is a type of depression that comes on at a particular period in time, and it usually comes on in the fall could last through early spring and then stops. Or it generally comes on in the fall, can come on in the spring, but it's rare. And so that's the biggest thing with seasonal depression. It really is it's related to a decrease in light. And that is what happened. And that's really what triggers the seasonal depression.
Daylight savings time. I was going to ask you about that because Heath and I were just talking about this, and I said, I just feel so run down. I get home, it's dark, and I just want to eat and go to sleep, but it's only 6:30.
Well, Jamie, you just described what seasonal depression looks like. The second part is eating. It was often described when someone with seasonal depression, you want to think about a bear. People hibernate. They get really tired and their appetite goes up, particularly for carbohydrates, because there's a point that there's potentially a decrease in serotonin, and then sugar is a temporary fix to increase serotonin. So you're spot on.
So with that said, I want to hit on something. So sailors at sea, or especially let's talk about submariners.
Yeah.
Who can go a long time without seeing real, light. Something besides, light in a room. I mean, no sunlight. So is that a big deal with dealing with submariners?
It's huge. And so, that's kind of one of the things I've been talking about a little bit recently. Not only submariners, but our people, our sailors who are in Seattle. Seattle, it's
right.
dark.
Yeah.
Anywhere that it's dark, because what happens is that when the sun hits your skin, you secrete something called histamine, which gives you energy, opposite of antihistamines, which make you sleepy.
Right.
And so with that being said, when it's dark, you're secreting melatonin. And melatonin is, of course, what makes you sleepy.
Right.
And when we talk about people who are at risk, yes, our sailors, there were some studies done there in Germany. There was a military psychiatrist who did some research in Germany. Of course, people in Germany are at increased risk, people in Alaska. But when we talk about who is at increased risk, it is women, more so than men. Men certainly can get seasonal depression. But would you believe that it's also eye color and skin color puts someone at increased risk? Jamie, I can't see your eye color, but I will tell you that people with brown eyes and hazel are at more increased risk, and people with dark skin than people with light skin.
Well, I am Hispanic with brown eyes, so you are spot on.
And I am a redneck with brown eyes. So
Yes.
I'm at risk.
But it's a lot of this is all seasonal depression also relates to vitamin D.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so there are, aside from eye color and skin color, there are other reasons. When people have low vitamin D, that also puts them at risk for seasonal depression. There are a myriad of reasons people can have low vitamin D. One, well, let me just say this, someone who's really has light skin, but they wear a lot of sunscreen. Well, they're going to be at risk the same as someone with darker skin.
Right.
So there are lots of reasons people take certain medications that reduce that risk.
So would, someone listening to this saying, hey, I kind of want to prevent this now that we're all in daylight savings times. Well, not all of us, some of us are in daylight savings time, but would it be of a sailor to say, I'm going to take vitamin D supplements at this time of year, or would it benefit them?
Yes, but Jamie, there's actually probably, so vitamin D, I'm not, it certainly helps, but I don't want, they would have to talk with their doctor.
Oh, okay. Yes.
to understand what their vitamin D level is.
Mhm.
Now, normal vitamin D runs from 30 to 100 nanograms. Now, in just my opinion, I'm not telling any sailor what to go out and do, but 50 to 80 is where I like to keep my patients. 30
Okay.
is still low. And when I do treat my patients, absolutely with vitamin D, and I give them 50,000 units once a week.
Wow. And then you just start, do they start, I guess, having more energy and all of
They
that we spoke about?
they certainly do, but there is actually a treatment, Jamie, way before we get to vitamin D.
Really?
It is. So have you ever heard of the Lightbox?
No, we talked about this. I've
We-
never heard of it.
Yeah. So wait, is this what the submariners have?
So, I've tried to snoop around to see if they have it, because if they don't, that would be an absolute potential lifesaver and miracle. So I don't know if they have it, but I would hope that they do, because I've never been on a submarine. But the way it works, actually, someone like yourself, Jamie, you can order it from Amazon.
Huh. Wow.
Now, you don't want to order just any Lightbox. There are certain criteria and ones that are have been studied and proven to be better than others.
That's so amazing that there's just something that you can do as far as light to change your
Yeah.
whole mood around,
Yeah,
right? I
right.
mean, you wouldn't. I guess I didn't even know that I was suffering from this. I just thought, oh, the time change is really
Right.
getting to me.
Right. That's what I always say, because it has been.
I didn't really know that it was actually, I was having symptoms.
Yeah, me too. I was having I'm passed out on the couch at 6 p.m.
Both of you, are at high risk. So each of you need a Lightbox.
Yeah.
And when you do, did you know that with the Lightbox, you measure the intensity of the bulb in lux, whereas a normal light bulb is measured in watts.
Watts, right.
Wow.
And so the idea is for any sailor out there to do something, we have to make it so that it is convenient.
Right.
And so, Jamie, you could put the Lightbox on your desk at work and use it, because I don't think anybody's just going to sit under a Lightbox. That's not the goal. But if you put it on your desk at work, the idea is that you would use it 30 to 60 minutes a day. You should put it on the edge and it should sit perpendicular. But the big thing is that the lux should be anywhere from 2,000 to 10,000 lux.
Wow.
So they got the light box, and that's its purpose of its creation, is to help people that's deficient in vitamin D, right?
Well, yes. Well, what it does, it's very similar to sunlight. And so that's the purpose.
Right.
And so if I have more sunlight, it's going to hit my skin. I'm going to create more vitamin D and more histamine versus melatonin.
Got it. So with that being said, there has been studies on this seasonal depression, even though it's kind of quiet. I haven't heard of it, but I'm not in the medical field, and Jamie never heard of it.
No, I've heard of it.
You've heard of it?
I just didn't really understand what it was. Yeah.
There's studies being done on it. Has the Navy made studies because they're, are they trying to do things to help prevent this from happening?
So, I did some investigation with, in regards to the Navy, and I was talking to a captain that I know, and I do know that yes, in 2018, the VA has done some studies on it, and what is the purpose of a study? Yes, to prove that it really exists. There were some studies that was done in the Antarctic with civilians and the military, and now that they know that it is real, they are telling military members and sailors to get awareness, and again, to get treatment for it.
So is it primarily our Pacific Northwest sailors that are dealing with this, or is it across the board? What do you typically see?
Yeah, and so really, the higher someone is or further away from the equator, the higher the risk. But I'm here in North Carolina, and I treat patients all the time. I mean, I also have dear good friends, and they are from, they're pretty Italian. So, I mean, it's you got the genetic piece that puts you at risk. You have your location. And so for this friend, she goes to Florida every year for a week or two to kind of rejuvenate in the middle, and it helps a lot.
Wow.
And so, you know, prevention, like I said, started early. Some people start feeling the symptoms as early as August, end of August.
Right.
And the reason being is that the days do get shorter, but the majority of people really do notice it when the time changes.
Right. When they'll fall back an hour.
Wow. And you know, I don't want to put my age out there, but I don't remember feeling this rundown.
I don't
about
either.
10 years
I don't
ago.
either. No, I don't either. This year's really hit me hard for some reason. Maybe because I don't have a job anymore. But
is age a factor in this as well?
Yeah, well, you know, it's interesting you brought that up, Jamie. So it actually starts, the prevalence, it really starts as early as in our 20s.
Okay.
And then can move forward. Average age, like I said, 20 to 30 is when it starts, and then onward. And that would make sense.
Yeah.
It just started with you.
Yeah. So since I'm in my 20s.
Are you know, Jamie, you look like you're in your 20s.
That's what I tell her.
Thank you.
And, you know, Heath, one of the things you have to really be concerned about is that you're, you know, retired, and then you'll be in the house more, less exposure to the sun. So even in the winter, sunny days, make it a point to get out, do things.
Yep. And plus, I'm always folding laundry. I got 2 boys. They like dirtying up their laundry.
Yeah.
I'm always folding laundry in the house.
So you're going to have to start folding laundry on the porch.
I guess. Yeah. Sounds like a plan.
You know, that makes so much sense, because yesterday I said, you know what, I just feel like I need some sunlight. So I kind of laid out in the sun. I mean, you know, it was like 70. So I just got some sun on my face, and I felt so much better. And it was maybe only 30 minutes, but it changed my day around.
It, you know, both the warmth of the sun and the brightness, I certainly can feel a big difference on certain days. You know, the Lightbox and vitamin D is the treatment of choice. But if that doesn't work, then our sailors need to seek their doctor. And the drug of choice is Wellbutrin.
Okay.
Is that prescription? You got to have prescription for that.
You do. And that's when it would be. And so it's interesting. And so to get good medical care for, you know, sailors, you got to know the signs and symptoms. You know, I'm feeling sluggish. My appetite is up. Because of course it could look like other diseases as well. And so it's important.
Right. So with that, you just said that. So what's the difference between seasonal depression and normal unseasonal depression? Holiday depression.
Increase of sweet, you know, we just had Halloween.
It happens all the same time of the year, right? So your holidays, you start getting the seasonal depression around right before the holidays. And then
you have pie, you get s'mores.
You gain 10 pounds around the same time. So is there anything that stands out with seasonal depression?
Well, yeah, I think one of the big things first to talk about is there a difference between seasonal depression and non-seasonal depression?
Right.
And so the seasonal depression is you're going to be able to distinguish a pattern. It comes relatively the same time every year. You may not notice it the first year, but anytime we have a change in the way we feel, I really encourage people, honestly, to make notes, because when you go to your provider, they need the information.
Right.
Now, and so in non-seasonal depression, one of the other differences is concentration. Seasonal depression doesn't generally affect concentration, and it doesn't quite have that hopelessness of non-seasonal, because the hopelessness, I think once people understand the pattern, it's not good, but at the same time, they have more hope, like, this is going to go away. Unlike non-seasonal depression.
Right.
So as leaders, when we're looking at our sailors, because I'm just looking, and now that I know the symptoms, I've noticed a change in their eating habits. So as leaders, knowing our sailors, we say intrusive leadership because you know them and how they act and react and eat and everything. What can we do to say, all right, you know what, I think, or at what point can we say, I think you might need to make some changes. I think you might be symptomatic.
Wow. Thank you for bringing that up, Jamie, because it reminds me of one of the things we're talking about in EOSC as well. It's called core leader functions. The acronym is SMITR. And within SMITR, the first thing you want to do is identify. And so if leaders and the command understand what these symptoms are, then they can identify it. And we're talking about using the acronym OSCAR to be able to communicate with our sailors in a way that is helpful, and then help guide them to get the T, which is treatment. And the biggest thing, earlier, maybe before the show, we were talking about stigma. And the biggest thing is we really just want to normalize, what, this is a part of life, depending on your risk factors. No biggie. Just like some people have asthma, you got to identify it. You got to get it treated and notice the triggers. And this is the same concept, and just educate people.
And too often we as sailors choose to live in pain than in freedom from that. And Heath gets on me all the time. I have a lower back issue, and he's like, will you just go to the doctor? And I'm like, oh, I'll get there someday. I'll do it later. But we choose to battle battle this seasonal depression or whatever, mental health. We choose to battle it without the seeking help over just breaking down and going to medical.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You keep leading me right back into this EOSC. And one of the things that we talk about in EOSC is we have 4 buckets: mind, body, spirit, and social. And seasonal depression has the potential to drain each of these buckets, because with seasonal depression, one of the other factors is people tend to isolate. Remember, I talked about the bear. And then, of course, it can affect our spirit and our mind. But then we talked about, yes, our body with wanting to sleep. And so one of the biggies that we have to stress to our sailors in terms of helping them to be resilient and strong is first taking care of ourselves and helping people to understand it is natural that things, we have a life has some wear and tear, but we have to be able to fill those buckets back up, whether it's buy myself a Lightbox, whether it's, go to a provider, whether it's talk to a trusted friend, or if it's just get a little bit of extra sleep that day because I need it.
Yeah. I've been really working on that. And one of the things I say is one of the things I've learned is to work as hard on your recovery as you do when you're on. So work as hard being off as you work as hard being on.
Ashley wakes me up at 5:30 in the
Well, I
morning.
mean, I got to get my run in, but
Well, wow, that's impressive. I really say, in response to what you just said, we have to listen to our body.
Yes.
I used to fight against it. And when we talk about that, one of the things that we as humans, leaders and military members have to get away from is glamorizing not needing enough sleep. Sleep is a magic pill. And so with that being said, because that's the way we repair ourselves. And so in the winter, we may need a little bit more sleep. But the idea is, if I'm feeling sluggish and down, there are things that we can do.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and it's so that you can just get on Amazon to help you,
Order a Lightbox.
I mean, I'm gonna get one. Put it on my desk.
Yeah.
So Jamie, if you'd like, I can send you a link, to the ones that there were some studies, because it would seem more convenient let's get this little small one, but that doesn't really work as well. The screen size actually needs to be a certain size, at least to be effective, at least a 12 by 17 from that perspective. And it has 3 bulbs, and they used to replace the bulbs about every 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
We can put that on our
Well,
description.
yeah, we'll put it out on our social media
And-
so that everybody can, listening to this can know which one it is.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
You're so welcome, because what happens is people often are facing a disruption in their circadian rhythm. And we used to think that, all circadian rhythm was on a 24-hour cycle, but there was a physician who wrote a book. It's called Reset Your Inner Clock. And he's got some things out on YouTube, and it really talks about, hey, Jamie, your circadian rhythm might be 24 hours and 5 minutes. Mine might be 25 hours. And it's how do we set our circadian rhythm so that we can participate in life.
You know what a pilot told me one time? He said, just drink orange juice. It'll help with your circadian rhythm. And I was like, okay, sir. Drinking orange juice. It
What
didn't
was his-
help me.
What was his rationale for that?
Well, he was a admiral and a Navy pilot, but also he worked for UP, not FedEx, but the other one, UPS. He flew for them, and so he said, when he would go through different time zones, he would drink orange juice, and it would help, I guess, trigger his mind to wake up like it was the morning. Yeah.
Maybe orange juice is full of sugar.
That's all you're doing.
Yeah, that's
Just getting
a
hyped up.
sugar rush.
Like drinking a Monster.
Yeah, because in reality, in a typical circadian rhythm, we have our highest alertness at 10 a.m. and at 9 p.m. is when we start secreting typically melatonin naturally for sleep.
Jamie's secreting that stuff like at 5 p.m.
Yeah, well, as soon as the sun goes
So-
down, 5:30.
I don't know why. She starts on the way home. So by the time she gets home, she's done.
Well, that's, we're talking about symptoms of seasonal depression.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, Jamie, you may have to get Heath to buy you one of those nice light boxes for Christmas.
I know. I'm
Actually, she's my sugar mama.
yeah. Now that he's
so
retired,
she's
I'm
a sugar
making the big
mama.
bucks.
She's a sugar mama. I'm just so angry ass retiree until we get somewhere else and I'll have to get a job. Enjoy it while I can,
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Enjoy it. Right.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for this. You just enlightened my life. Never even heard of
I
any of
know.
this stuff.
I'm looking forward to going back to work and feeling 10 times better and sharing this information with my sailors. Really.
Definitely.
Absolutely. I loved your play on words. Yes, I hope to enlighten people and they can light up with the light box.
light
Yes.
up with the light box.
Yeah, definitely. Well, is there anything else that we missed that you might want to go into
Yeah.
that we just didn't cover?
Like I said, there are 5 phases of depression. Maybe people at a later point, we could talk about atypical depression, a completely different type of depression. But by all means, my goodness, thank you so much for having me on. And, you've got my contact information if any sailors would have further questions or would like to follow up.
Definitely.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure, ma'am. But we're about to end this, but please stay on the call. We'll talk offline real quick. And with that, I wish you
Fair winds.
and following seas.